Hello and welcome to another episode of Two Guys and a Chainsaw. I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
Well, we've been going through quite a few requests lately, and now it's about time. It is about time for us to get to a request that has been sitting in our queue for ages. Poor Francis, 3 or 4 times, has very kindly tapped us on the shoulder and said, hey, would you guys mind doing Cockneys versus zombies? I'd sure love to hear your views on Cockneys versus zombies. Hey, just to remind you, I requested Cockneys versus zombies. Quite nice. And so here we are, finally getting around. Look, don't say that we don't listen to your requests. Like, I respond to all of you. It does go on a list. Just because you don't hear it in, say, 5 years doesn't mean we might not get back to it.
Yeah.
Right.
I do feel bad. I know we really do. We put all the requests on a list. But, you know, we have our preferences too. So we tend to pick the ones that we are most interested in, and also the ones that are easiest to find. There are a couple of ones on the request list that I've really wanted to do, but they're really difficult to find. They're not streaming anywhere. And neither of us are wealthy, so it's not like we're
willing to
like
pay.
Pouring out money, right? I mean, that $4 could get me like a burger.
we're cheap ass bastards. This is why. This would be a good time to have a Patreon account where we could say, you know what, you could change all this if you.
Yeah, stay tuned, folks. It may not be long.
It may not be long.
But no, we're finally getting to it. Cockneys versus zombies.
2012 zom-com.
Yeah.
I tell you, I think one of the things that made me, well, there were probably 2 things that made me kind of brush this aside a little bit. Maybe 3. The first one is it sounded an awful lot like Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
You know, when I first, is this kind of like a cheap Shaun of the Dead knockoff kind of thing? And the second thing, because I'd never heard of it before, which made me think even more like, this is kind of a cheap Shaun of the Dead knockoff. And I think the reason I probably hadn't heard of it, because there are a lot of famous people in this movie, especially if you know British actors. And I will say I am not really brushed up on my British actors unless they've been in like famous movies or TV shows that are, you know, kind of world famous. I'm not as familiar with these faces and these names, but I often see them and I go, oh, that guy's familiar. Oh, that woman's familiar. What was she in? So that was those 2 things. So I hadn't really heard of it before, and it was an awful lot like Shaun of the Dead. And also, I mean, this came out in 2012. So a little while ago, believe it or not, like almost 10 years ago. And by now, I feel a little kind of burned out on comedic zombie movies. I mean, Shaun of the Dead came out, and it was brilliant. It still is brilliant. It's kind of cut above the rest, I think, just in that. But then we've done Anna versus the Apocalypse, and we've done, I don't know. I mean, it seems like this has become kind of its own subgenre, right?
It has.
There are horror comedies, but like there are also like zombie comedies. Like it's its own thing, right?
Yeah. But to be honest with you, I actually kind of prefer the zombie comedies to just the straight zombie movies.
And why
the
is that?
The straight zombie movies, you know, I know that there are a lot of fans of The Walking Dead and you know, all of Romero's stuff, and that's fine. I get it, and I'll watch some of them, but I honestly feel like most of the time it's the same thing. Like, I mean, it's zombies, you know, it's zombies chasing people around. That's fine. I actually really do appreciate the humor. I liked Anna and the Apocalypse a lot.
Yeah, we really enjoyed that one.
And we watched Cooties about, you know, the little kid zombies. That was hilarious. So I actually do like these zombie comedies. And honestly, like, I liked this movie. You can't help but draw comparisons to Shaun of the Dead. And that really, I think, is to this movie's detriment. Because it's not as good. And it's not as funny. It's funny, but it's not as funny.
I would say it's like Shaun of the Dead is funny in very clever ways, you know? Shaun of the Dead has like a very sort of sophisticated plot structure with with things that are set up early on that have payouts later. I mean, it's really just a good movie, period. It's well plotted, but it's just, I don't know, the level of humor, you know, even though it's pretty darn silly, it feels a little more sophisticated. Whereas this movie, look, it's funny, but it didn't have me rolling on the floor. It didn't have me slapping my head. There were no, like, it's kind of typical humor. And I think that was my big kind of issue with that. It's like, oh, okay, like really, really old people who are able to wield a gun and suddenly, you know, turn from sweet old frail people into gun-toting granny kind of characters. Okay,
see, I thought that was hilarious. Like, I think that was my favorite part.
Honestly, probably was my favorite part. But it's a trope. You know what I mean? It's a pretty typical trope. I don't even just mean in horror movies, but I'm just mean in any movies. This idea that an old person is crasser and more vibrant or whatever than they first appear to be early on, that, you know, is supposed to get a laugh. And oh, yeah, I don't know. It just, I felt like the whole movie was kind of like this. I kind of saw the jokes coming a mile away. I kind of wasn't surprised at the humor. I thought I don't know, I just didn't laugh out loud too many moments during this movie. But I did chuckle, you know.
Yeah.
And I did enjoy myself. Overall, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed watching it. But, you know, I can't say I was blown away by really any aspect of it.
I think, yeah, but going back to the old people, I mean, it's a zombie movie, and, you know, so it is zombies chasing people around a lot, but it's kind of divided between two stories, and there's like, not two stories, they're interlocked, but there's a young group of people, you know, probably in their 20s, that are kind of the central characters. But then there's also this older cast who lives in this, like, retirement community or care facility or whatever. And those older people, I just found so charming. I think I just really like it when actors of more advanced age are
You're
given
trying so hard to be
opportunities.
PC.
Well, no, I mean, they're old people. They're old. These are old people. They're playing people in a retirement community. They're elderly people, but a lot of these actors are established actors from their day, you know, who they probably don't have the same kinds of opportunities. Not that they or anybody else might think that Cockneys versus zombies is some kind of amazing opportunity. Like finally, the role of a lifetime.
My second coming. I can revitalize my career.
But it's fun. It's fun to see these folks, you know, get to play, and they do get to play, and it's funny, and they get to fight zombies, and like you said, you know, I recognize some of these actors, even some of the older ones I recognize, but they're not anybody whose name I would know, or who I could specifically identify. I just, oh yeah, that guy. But one of the ones that stood out to me in the old people group was this old lady named Peggy, who's like kind of the girlfriend of the main old guy, and she's played by Honor Blackman. And I just, in my mind, I was thinking, I bet you money that this woman had a career as a young woman. And so I looked her up, and she was pussy galore.
Crazy, right?
The best Bond girl name in the whole history of James Bond. Pussy galore is in this movie, and she's a little old frail lady, and she kicks ass.
and you know, I mean, she still looks good too.
She does. She's beautiful.
When I saw her, I knew just like you did. I'm like, this is a classic actress who was just like stunningly gorgeous in her day. And yeah, she was pussy galore. She was Hera in Jason and the Argonauts. She played in the Avengers TV series as Catherine Gale. I mean, this woman has an insane resume. So, Doctor Who. A lot of these people were in Doctor Who, apparently, too. I mean, which British actor hasn't appeared in Doctor Who at some point or another? I don't know. And she died last year, by the way.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Well, she was an old broad. She had a good life, I think.
I would say so.
The only other actor that I specifically recognize was one of the younger actors who plays Andy, who is one of these two brothers. There's Terry and Andy. His name is Harry Treadaway. And I recognized him, and I looked him up, and what I recognized him from was a movie called Honeymoon, which I was almost positive that you and I had done on the podcast, and I looked for it and couldn't find it, and I couldn't believe we hadn't done it.
Really? I don't even know this one.
Oh, it's a good movie. It's a horror sci-fi thriller that focuses just basically on these two people, this young husband and wife who are newly married and they're on their honeymoon, and she mysteriously kind of goes missing in the night, and he finds her and she's all dirty, and then like she's different, but why?
Right. That sounds interesting.
It's really good. If you haven't seen it out there, folks, check it out. Honeymoon. I don't remember when it came out. Last 5 years or so, I think.
I recognize him. I don't know if you ever saw the TV series Penny Dreadful. But I started watching that a while back, and he's Victor Frankenstein in that. And quite good, actually, in it. Quite good. Very intense, dark take on Victor Frankenstein. It's really impressive. Yeah, so yeah, I recognize him from that.
He's handsome. He has pretty blue eyes.
Good-looking man.
They play, very working class, lower working class folks. So he's kind of rough looking in this movie, but good looking guy. And that's another thing. The characters are likable. The way that the movie opens up is we get a picture of a poster outside of this new development, and Hartman Construction is building luxurious living in the heart of East London. And it shows, like this big condominium that they're going to be building or whatever. But then it just shows the construction site, which is in East London, and it's really ugly and dirty and, looks awful. It also made me very interested to learn about the history of the East End of London, because I don't know that much about it. And so I looked it up.
It's so funny how alike we are.
I haven't. Todd, as you listeners may know, is a world traveler who has lived all over the world, living in China now, but you've lived in England and God knows where else. I am not a huge world traveler, but I did spend a summer in London, and I absolutely loved it. I think of all the cities I've ever traveled to, London is my favorite. It's just beautiful, and it's an amazing amalgamation of modern architecture and technology, but also like you'll just see these buildings, everywhere, just that are hundreds of years old, just like this amazing historical architecture. It's amazing. And all of the different, I stayed pretty central. I was studying theater, and so we stayed fairly central, but we were tasked with venturing out into some of the smaller parts of the city, because my instructor wanted us to see like just local theater, which thrives in London. And so I went and saw a production of Little Shop of Horrors in this tiny bar. Like, it was just in the back room of this tiny bar. So, you would go and get your pint in the bar, and then you would go sit like on benches in this back room and watch the show. And it was so much fun. But anyway, so I looked up East London, and historically it's been kind of working class, lower class, poorer area. In recent decades, there's been a lot of development there, so things have changed, but you very much get that sense from this movie that this is a very working class place, and the fact that these big corporate developers are coming in, is problematic for the people who live there. It's displacing these people who have spent their entire lives there, and while development and that in theory that sounds great, but what does that mean for the people that have called this their homes for so long? And that's such like an underlying motif in the movie. Like, it's really not all that important, but I feel like it gives heart to the characters and gives them real motivation. I believed them. Our main characters, Terry and Andy, are these working class guys, and their grandpa, Ray, lives in this retirement community that's going to be torn down to make way for all this development. And that's what motivates them basically through the whole movie.
I thought that was interesting. I was getting real like batteries not included vibes, or maybe the good
vibe. Oh God. That's such a good movie too. Sometimes I wish that we didn't limit ourselves strictly to horror, because there are so many movies like that I just absolutely love that we could never justify talking about. But seriously, folks, batteries not included. Check it out.
Go see it now. For sure. Oh, another wonderful movie of a lot of very older, established actors, a little past their prime.
Jessica Tandy, one of my favorite actresses, and her husband, Hume Crows. I can't think of his name, but just tons of great people.
It is great.
Anyway, in this movie, we see the construction site. A worker uncovers like this medieval door, which is hilarious.
That was hilarious.
Like, it's in perfect condition. Like, they just happened to dig it up.
Like a foot below the surface.
And and there's a sign on it that says sealed by order of King Charles II in 1666. And one of these two guys are there, and one of them's like, we should tell the foreman. And the other guy's like, dude, there might be like gold in there. And so they just bust into it, like break it down with sledgehammers. And what they find is a tomb.
It's a graveyard. It's a plague pit, more like.
We can't nick stuff from a graveyard. Can we?
I don't care. They're dead already, aren't they?
And there are skeletons everywhere, and they're joking
Skulls
around
all over the floor.
But then a skeleton like is up and walking around behind one of them, and the other one's like, dude, walk out, there's a skeleton behind you. And he's like, okay, skeleton behind me. And then it bites him in the throat and kills him, and it kills both guys.
Oh, dude. That second kill where he bites the other guy, like basically like takes off part of his jaw or something.
Yeah.
Super gory. And I was like, oh, wow. So we're really, I mean, that sets a tone, right? How gory is your zombie movie going to be? Yeah. And it was pretty brutally gory. So I thought, oh, okay, cool. It's going to be funny, and we're going to get some serious gore.
Yeah, it is pretty gory. I will start out with the gripe that there's a lot of blood spray, and it's CGI.
That was so distracting.
Yeah. It doesn't look great. Like, I mean, it's serviceable, but it looks like a video game. It doesn't look real. It calls attention to itself, really. It's kind of that bad, I think. I was really disappointed. And why couldn't they have gone with a little more practical for this? I mean, it wasn't like there were these intricately staged, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they're trying to save on makeup or whatever. Well, I feel like I have no idea what their budget was, but I can't imagine that it was that big. And there are so many extras in this movie, like thousands of extras playing zombies. And I guess they just advertised for them on TV around London, like, come be a zombie in our movie, and tons and tons of people showed up, and like people were sending in audition tapes, like pretending to be zombies, and you can kind of tell. I mean, it's not like you're looking at seasoned actors, like it looks like they just pulled people off the street and said, "Okay, be a zombie." And really, that's the thing about zombie movies, is that's sometimes all you really need. But it's okay.
How hard can
it
it be?
works. and these are slow walking zombies.
Yeah, which they use to great effect later, I think.
Yeah.
The gags.
But
of the slow.
after those guys get killed, the title sequence
Oh.
starts up, and it's animated, and it's really fun music, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be good.
Yes. I'm glad you brought that up because the title sequence just like got my heart pumping. The graphics popping up and the music was great. This title music was great, whatever song that was, and the end credit song was like just this great rock tune. I don't know. It was just amazing. But then we go through what I consider to be a kind of a plodding introduction. It kind of took its time to introduce us to the characters. Like you said, these two guys who are clearly planning something, which we later find out is this bank robbery to help support his grandfather, who's in the retirement home that's in threat to be torn down. And so, like you said, it bounces between them sort of assembling the team. They have their cousin, I guess, is a woman. Her name is Katie. She's played by a woman named Michelle Ryan. I didn't really look her up if she's been in much of anything.
I don't know, but she's cute and she's a badass. She's like, she can
fine.
pick locks and hot wire cars.
Right.
She's pretty cool.
And then they pick up this other guy named Davy Tuppence, who they just call Tuppence, which is cute. British thing. I don't know why British, like, sometimes it just all sounds so cute. Tuppence, and I'm going to take my dog out for walkies, you know? Like, aw. But yeah, so he's kind of, what is his specialty? I can't remember.
I don't either. I don't remember what his specialty is because the only thing that they show about him is that he robs places, but he always gets caught. Like, why would you want that guy?
Exactly.
Oh, no. But he's just different.
And then they pick up this absolutely batshit insane guy named Mental Mickey.
Yeah.
And he is crazy. But also, he's the guy you want on your team if A, you're going to be robbing a bank, or B, you're going to be up against zombies.
Yeah. I mean, he clearly is crazy. Like, there's no reining him in, but he's also the weapons guy. Like,
yeah.
Even though they don't want to hurt anybody. In fact, they don't even want to fire the guns at all. They just feel like they need them for intimidation purposes, which, okay, that makes sense. But when you got a guy like Mental Mickey with you, like, things probably aren't going to go as planned. And his gimmick is that he has this huge scar on his head, and he apparently has a steel or metal plate in his head, and so he just uses his head to bash things all the time.
Yeah.
It's kind of hilarious.
That's so funny. It is. But these two kids also, like, their main job apparently is delivering Meals on Wheels.
Yeah.
To old people. And so they both show up at the old folks' home. And that's when we get introduced to this cast of old British actors and actresses. They all have their little quirks. So there's their grandfather, and his name is Ray. And he's played by Alan Ford, who is a classic British actor. And,
yeah.
And apparently this role was written for him.
Yeah. And he's great in it. He's like the hard-ass old grandpa, but I totally believe him. Like...
Oh, yeah.
I've known old guys like this. Like, they're badasses from back in the day, and they're not going to let the fact that they're old now stop them from being grumpy, short-tempered, old badasses.
Right.
I know you're going to be knocking this place down in a few weeks' time, but do you feel the need to rub it in? There's people here about to have their dinner. You yuppie twat.
Look, I really need to get these measurements, okay?
If you don't sling your hook in 5 seconds' time, I'm going to ram that f***ing clipboard so far up your arse, you're going to have to shove your pen up your nose to write on it. 5, 4,
All right.
3, 2.
He does a great job. He's really strong. There's a woman named Doreen who's like this super horny old lady.
She was hilarious.
And she she's feeling up Andy, all she's like pressing her body against him. And, God,
would you like to
so
come and
funny.
fix my window latch? I just don't know what to do about it.
Oh, it's so funny. And throughout the movie, like, she's worried about him, and like when they eventually come back together, she runs into his arms. Like, it's super cute, and he just kind of humors her. I actually kind of got this, like, just a little bit of a hint that maybe maybe he had humored her in the past.
Had a little taste.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
And then there's Peggy. I don't know her real name, but Pussy Galore works for me. And she's a super sweet old lady who is sweet on Ray. But that's also great, too, because when they start getting in big trouble and when the zombies are all around, this sweet little old lady, she can totally hold her own, too. Like,
Yeah.
somebody hands her a gun and she's like... she's inserting the clip and like cocking it, like she knows exactly what she's doing. She's
done
taking
it
out
before.
zombies.
Well, she was Pussy Galore, so, you know.
Oh God,
There's a thing or
it's
two.
fantastic. And there's more of them. Those are the most important one. There's Daryl. He's like a crotchety old ex-gangster type. There's Eric, who's a funny old guy in a wheelchair. There's Hamish, who's this like likable old horn dog who spends his time like ogling women through binoculars from his balcony.
Who's also hard of hearing and moves very, very slowly.
Yeah. Oh.
And I guess this was his last screen role.
Yeah.
Richard Briers. So
Yeah, he passed away either soon after or maybe right before the movie came out. But cute. All of these old folks are super cute. I love them. I would totally go hang out with them and dance with them. Like, it's adorable. Like, before the zombies even come, they like are just hanging out in like their common room, and people are playing music and they're singing together
they're like
and dancing
playing the piano
together.
and singing. It is cute, right? I mean, it's sweet.
If I ever end up in an old folks home, I hope it's like this one. They all seem like they really like each other and they're having a good time. Like,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
It makes it all the more important that Terry and Andy protect and preserve this by robbing a bank. That's
Right.
Yeah. No, you're right. And I think, like you said, I think that's the best part of the movie. It's just the dynamic of the old people. I think it was the younger guys, you know, when they finally have to come up against the zombies, where I felt like, yeah, I've kind of seen all this before. But anyway, yeah, so they do that. They all meet up, and then these guys, Andy and Terry, are assembling their crew of these guys, and they're in a van, and then they go to the bank to rob it. And the thing is, they happen to dress as construction workers as their cover, I guess, for coming to the bank, even though all of them just came out of the back of a unmarked van just outside the bank, where they quickly huddle up and discuss their plan out in the open street. I thought that was kind of funny. Right. They walk in, and the other thing that's going on apparently is that the foreman or the owner of the construction company or whatever has got some shady business deal or something going on, where he's either got to pay somebody off or he's got to return some money that he owed. I don't remember exactly what the deal was. And his person, or is it his wife, or just his, I don't know, who works at the bank, is expecting someone from the construction company to come and collect like £2 million of a payoff or something. And these guys show up, and before they could even get to the business of robbing the bank, she pops out and is like, "Oh, are you guys here for the money?" And they're like, well, yeah." And she's like, "All right, come on in," you know, and sits them down and starts to talk with them, and then realizes in the office that, oh God, they aren't who I thought they were, and they realize, you know, they lock the door, and Mental Mickey gets his gun out and starts threatening her. She's pressed a little button under her thing to call the cops, but not before she ends up taking them down to the vault, where they see all this big pile of money, and they're like, "Oh, wow. So cool, we'll just take this."
And in the meantime, we have seen that the zombies are spreading. Like, the construction site was the epicenter, but now they are moving out. And they've already reached the old folks' home. One of the old folks has already spotted them. I think it's Hamish spotted them through his binoculars. And so they're out there. And so this bank robbery goes wrong.
Of course.
They hadn't wanted to use their weapons at all, and they weren't planning on it. But when they go to exit the bank, they're surrounded by police.
Yes.
And pretty much everybody is like, what are we gonna do? You know, I guess we just have to surrender or whatever. But Mental Mickey's like, I'm not going down. And he goes out and just starts, like, he's got a machine gun, I think, and just starts shooting at the police. And they go, and then he comes back in, and all the other folks are like, what are you doing? We weren't going to use guns. Now we're in even bigger trouble or whatever. And he's like, I don't care, because I'm Mental Mickey, and nobody's going to take me down. And so so Mental Mickey grabs a couple hostages, a man and a woman, Emma and Clive. And they're going to go out, and they say, we're coming out, and we've got hostages. But when they go out, everybody outside is dead.
That was, to me, that was the funniest part of the whole movie. I laughed out loud at that point. Not only are they dead, but there's like legs over here, half a torso over there. Like, it's like a completely different scene that happened like within the last 3 minutes,
right,
while they were inside. It's hilarious
and entirely implausible, because as we find out very soon, these zombies are very slow moving. Like, as long as you've got, and it's not like this is new. We've seen this in other movies too. As long as you don't get like cornered, like, you can just kind of fast walk around them. Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's not really that big a deal, but somehow in 3 minutes they have decimated this whole block.
That's the gag. It is so funny. In the meantime, at the old folks' home, the old folks are having their singing and dancing, fun time, and some zombies start to shamble towards there and then burst in through the back door as well. And they're able to fend themselves off pretty well, actually. I think one of the nurses, the bigger nurse, gets bit. Ray grabs one of those, it's like an implement they were using to trim the hedges or something, and takes a dude's head off. That was a very distractingly bad special effect. But yeah, anyway, so then they end up kind of holed in there. So this is where like the two stories are starting to kind of move forward.
Right. Because Terry and Andy are worried about, well, and Katie, their cousin too. They're all worried about their granddad. But another thing that I like about this movie is that everybody recognizes and acknowledges that it's zombies right away. Like, yes. They don't try to explain it away in any other way. They're not confused. Like, the old people are like, it's f***ing zombies.
Yeah. Well, I love it when she says, what is it? When they come out and she says, I think this is not the old people, but this is the young people. This is when they're standing outside just looking at the decimated thing, and they see people shambling towards them. And I think it might be Mental Mickey or somebody says, what in the heck is this? And Katie says, I think it's zombies. And they're like, no way. And then a guy like shambles towards them, his guts fall out, and she says, that man is eating an arm. It's zombies. They're like, okay, fair enough. And they hop in their van and take off.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And they do. They all hop in the van. They make the mistake of bringing an injured person with them, I guess, out of compassion. That person immediately turns into a zombie, and Mickey has to shoot her out the back. The young folks end up, I don't know what it is. It's like a factory or a warehouse or something that they end up in. And there's a chain link fence that they're able to close behind them and lock, So there are some zombies in there, and for the most part they dispatch them right away, but they're able to keep this big horde of zombies that are following them out. And they're in there for a while. Mickey right away gets bit. Like, he takes out one zombie, but then I feel like another zombie, like, he shoots it, and it's so stupid. Like, he shoots it in both arms and then both legs, and before he can shoot it in the head with his huge gun that he has a name for, it bites him on the arm, and then he shoots it in the head and blows its head completely off, except the jaw remains connected to his arm and just stays there for the next 5 or 10 minutes.
The face,
which I thought was pretty hilarious.
That was a gag I had never seen before in a zom-com for sure. There's just this face of this zombie still latched onto his arm, and he's like, "Well, I can't take it off.
Don't worry about it.
Skin."
Don't worry about it. It's fine.
And
it's probably not as bad as it looks.
But it's dangling and getting in the way. Finally, he pries it off. But, of course, that's an issue because everybody knows about zombies biting people, blah, blah, blah. So, again, in this world, there's no question. Like, everybody knows the rules. And so that was kind of cool. But he brushes it off like it's not going to be a big deal. In the meantime, the old folks are kind of trying to take stock of who all is there. And they're like, oh, we're missing, It was Hamish, right? Hamish. Where's Hamish? Oh, well, we saw him. He was out in the garden. So they're in the kitchen or something. They open the window and they see him napping on a chair out in the garden. And
surrounded by zombies. I thought that was hilarious, too.
Oh, yeah, it was great.
Because the zombies aren't paying any attention to him because, he's just laying there. He could be dead for all they know. Oh, it's so funny. And they yell out the window. Oh, God, that might be one of my favorite parts, too. They're like, Hamish, wake up. And he finally wakes up and he's like, what? And the zombies are all around.
They're starting to come after him.
They're starting to move towards him. And I think it's Ray yelling at him, Hamish, there are zombies. They're right behind you. Nope, doesn't work. Can't hear you. Hold on.
Had this experience? My grandfather.
Hold on. And he slowly gets up and he's got his walker and he's like, hold on, I'm coming. And they're still yelling at him, trying to, can't hear you.
Bless his heart. My grandfather was like this. He was like this crotchety guy who, had hearing aids and they didn't make any bit of difference. And, you would just have these charming but frustrating moments with him where he just can't hear what the hell you're trying to say. Finally, he goes, zombies. And he's like, look around. And he kind of turns around. He's like, oh, no. So he starts moving on his walker. And
he can't move any faster than he already was.
He can't move any faster. And thankfully, the zombies can't move any faster than him on his walker either. So suddenly the music kicks into high gear and it's like, like it's this crazy chase scene. We get these close-ups on him and close-ups on the zombies. And then, that shot from far away where it's just like he's still on his walker.
Yes.
Just slowly.
It's
that was funny.
Fun because Ray's like, I'm going to go get him. And he takes the wheelchair from the guy who's in a wheelchair. He's like, I'm going to go get him. And they open the door. There are zombies all out there, but they're just like beating on them. Like Peggy and the other Doreen are just like whacking at these zombies to let Ray get out. And he runs out there with the wheelchair and he gets Hamish in the wheelchair, and then Hamish is holding his walker out in front of him and they're just like plowing through zombies. It's so silly but so funny.
It is.
It got, honestly, okay, full disclosure, Todd and I couldn't make our schedules work last week. So I watched this movie like 2 weeks ago. So as I'm talking about it now, I'm just remembering it. And honestly, I think that my memories of it and talking about it are funnier than it actually was.
Yeah. I think
thinking
you're right.
about it and talking about it, oh,
well,
that's
I mean,
funny. Conceptually, that's hilarious.
Right. in execution.
Still pretty funny.
Still
I
pretty
mean,
funny,
these old people are very committed to their roles, and it's very tongue in cheek and it's very cute.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the city is burning.
Mm-hmm.
Emma and Clive are still prisoners. Emma begs to leave. Apparently, she has a sick sister that is incapacitated that she feels like she needs to check on. But Mickey takes the van keys away, or the car keys or whatever, away from one of the guys. And he's obviously looking sick, like they know he's going to turn, but he also has big guns, so they can't really do anything.
Mm-hmm.
He gets attacked again, and there's a moment where he breaks a zombie's neck, but that still doesn't kill it, so he just keeps turning it, and he turns the zombie's head around 360 degrees, and then rips it off.
Yeah.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah. He's a badass. So then he ends up with those guys tied up. He ties up the prisoners, and he sits down on a chair, and it looks like he's about to be gone. And then finally he does. He turns, and he starts to go after them, and the others rush in. And then there's this hilarious moment, which, was a setup we should have seen coming, but it did surprise me, where finally they've got his gun, and they start shooting him in the head, but because he has a metal plate on his head, it's not working. The bullets bounce right off.
That was so funny, too. Like, that's always, you find yourself as an audience member always shouting at people, the head, shoot him in the head. And in this moment, they totally do, but it doesn't work because he's got a steel chrome. Oh God! So they take a grenade because Mickey also had grenades. They take a grenade and what do they? I don't remember what they do with it. Do they stick it in his mouth or
something like that, or they chuck it in the room?
Yeah.
I don't remember. Yeah,
stick it in his mouth or something. He blows up or whatever.
Explodes. Through all this ordeal, one of the prisoners gets free, the guy, and he gets the gun, and I think he ends up accidentally or shooting Tuppence, right? So Tuppence is...
Yeah, and he dies,
shot.
which is sad, but you expect there to be casualties. He wasn't really a big character anyway.
No, he really wasn't.
So then, the people that are left are Andy and Terry, the brothers, Katie, their cousin, and Emma, the hostage. And they're going to head for the old folks' home, but they're super nice, so they say that they're going to drop Emma at her sister's place. The zombies break into the compound as they try to leave. Fighting, shooting, blah, blah, blah. They get them all off. Meanwhile, back at the old folks' home, the old folks are planning because they're locked up in like the kitchen, and there are zombies all around. Like there are windows all around. There are doors with windows, and they can see the zombies all around. And they're like, what are we going to do? There's nothing we can do. And they're like, somebody, maybe Ray, maybe somebody else, says, well, we can fight. And they're like, well, with what? And so they just start like grabbing like kitchen implements and stuff.
All right, well, how about it? Why don't we go out there and face them? Go down fighting. What do you think?
But somebody might come. Somebody might rescue us.
Nobody cares. We're on our own. We're old age pensioners. We got to take care of ourselves.
These old folks are ready to go down fighting.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cute. They go check on Emma's sister. We never see Emma's sister. Emma goes into her apartment and we just hear noise and she's been turned into a zombie. So she sticks with them and they don't know what they're going to do because there are so many. They want to go help the old people, but they're like, surely the zombies are around there too. What are we going to do? So they're like, we don't have any weapons. And somebody says, wait a second, doesn't Mickey have weapons? And they have his keys. So they go to, like, he lives in a storage container. Like
something like that, yeah.
And so they go there and they open it up and it is an arsenal like you've never seen. Yeah. And I also loved that scene too. Like they just have these big duffel bags and they're just stuffing them full of like machine guns and handguns and swords and
yes.
they have so much artillery.
Yeah. But then they're like, how are we going to get there? Yada, yada. And they say something to Katie about, can you hotwire a car, right? She's like, yeah, sure. And the next thing you see is they are driving down the street in a big double-decker red bus.
Classic.
And
Classic.
that made me chuckle. I thought, yeah, okay, we're going very strong on the London branding here, right?
Yeah.
Which was cool.
And I can't believe I spent that whole summer in London and I never once rode one of those buses, and I actually kind of regret it.
God, man. What were you thinking?
But
I
it's
think
so
they're still
funny. Oh my God, yeah, they're still there. It's so funny to watch them. I mean, like it's a nice one. Like it's nice and shiny and new. But being a bus, it's also kind of open in the back where people can board and whatnot, and so they're kind of having to shoot zombies out of the boarding area.
Yeah, and was it
time to time?
Is it Katie who shoots a zombie out of the back, and or is it the other girl? I don't remember. But anyway, it kind of surprises everybody that she was able to blow him away. Then she turns around and says, "No ticket." And I'm like, oh, come on. I was like, And this is what I meant earlier. I felt like there were more than a few moments like this in the movie where it's like, okay, I realize that's supposed to be funny, but kind of a groaner.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's a cheap, easy joke, but it made me smile. It was silly. So they get to the old folks home, but the zombies are surrounding it. So Emma is like, well, I'll cause a diversion. You guys get the old folks. So she like calls to the zombies and like draws them to the bus, and then she gets in the bus and drives away, and they're able to get in to the old folks home through a skylight or something like that,
hatch
which
in
is
the roof or something.
Yeah, it's kind of a funny scene because they open it up and Ray and the other old folks are right there. Like they think the zombies are coming in. So they're right there like ready to kill them. And they're like, ah! And it's kind of a sweet reunion.
Yeah.
But they get in and they arm up all the old folks, which is such a great scene. They give Peggy a gun. She totally knows how to use it. Whoever it is that has the walker, like they duct tape like a machine gun to the walker.
That is funny.
And they do the same thing to the wheelchair. Oh my God. And so they blow up the zombies in the lobby because they're going to go out the front, and they come out with their guns and swords blazing. One of the old guys, Daryl, gets attacked by a zombie, and it starts biting him on the leg, and he's like, haha, wrong leg. And it turns out it's a prosthetic leg that he then takes off and beats the zombie to death.
Yes. Oh, you're right though. When we're talking about it, it feels a lot funnier than it felt when I was watching it.
I know. I'm telling you.
I don't know why. Yeah.
They get out. Emma comes back with a bus. They all get on the bus and they drive away. And then there's a really cute scene where the grandpa, Ray, somehow it comes out that they had robbed a bank.
You robbed a bank? After all I tried to teach you about working for a living? After what happened to your mum and dad, called rest their souls? How much did you get?
2.5 million.
Well, that was really stupid. 2.5 million? It was irresponsible and wrong. But you definitely got the Maguire genes in you.
You're not angry?
Look, you risked prison to make sure me and this lot were taken care of. You risk your lives to come and save us. I'm impressed.
Cheers.
But if you ever do it again, I shall knock 7 shades of shit out of the pair of you.
We won't, Grandad.
And don't f***ing call me Grandad.
Yeah. See, you think that scene is cute. I thought it was silly. I thought that was really, really silly. That didn't ring for me. Even in the comedy, the goofy
it totally
comedy
did for me. Because I could see, I don't know, I could see getting that talk from my dad. Like,
yeah.
God, you really shouldn't rob banks, but thanks, I love you. By the way, I have no idea when this episode will air, but as we're recording right now, it's my dad's birthday. Happy birthday, Dad!
Aww.
I love you.
What did you give him? I hope it was 2 million pounds.
Nothing. Right after this, I'm going over to have lunch with them that my mom is cooking, and I'm not bringing anything to. So I guess I'm giving him the luxury of my presents.
Presents? So this is what it's come to, huh?
They're not wealthy people, but they're financially stable. They're
okay. Okay. They don't need your money. I'll tell them that.
They don't need my money. They just need my love. But it seems like this is going to be a happy ending. Like they're going to drive off into the sunset in the bus, but then the bus dies. But they're near the river, the Thames, I assume. And so they're like, maybe we should find a boat. And so they go looking for a boat. And there are still zombies everywhere. But they do find a boat, and everybody jumps in, and Peggy takes like the wheel and finds the keys and starts to take off.
She finds the keys like up above, like under like the
like in a visor.
In a visor,
like a sun visor.
It's so silly.
It's pretty funny. And they start to take off, but as it turns out, they have failed to untie one of the chains that was mooring the boat. Ray leaps to the shore, and unchains it. And he's like, if you want something f***ing done, you gotta do it yourself.
You know, you want something done, do it your f***ing self. Used to. Look after Katie and Peggy and get a f***ing job, or I'll come back and f***ing haunt you. What are you doing?
So then the zombies attack Ray, and they're like, just dozens of them, like, completely piled on him. And his grandkids are going to try to rescue him, but it looks like there's just no freaking way.
It looks like this is going to be our emotional moment of the movie, where like Ray goes down, sacrificing himself for his kids and or his grandsons. I mean, it's starting to feel poignant. Although I will say, this wasn't the kind of movie I think that was going to draw at my heartstrings that deeply. It just seemed like that would be the arc.
Totally.
Whereas at this suddenly you see zombies start to go down. Oh, was it Andy jumps back onto shore as well, right? To go save him, or no?
Well, I think all three of them do. All three. I don't remember who it is. All I remember is that but I feel like the kids kind of realize there's nothing we can do, at which point Ray starts shooting his way out of the horde. And he does. Like, he shoots his way out of the horde, and he stands up all triumphantly. And then there's, like, a very gratuitous, but at the same time, like, you're rooting for them, like, family gunfight, and they're all like tossing weapons to each other and helping each other out. And it's fun. Again, the CGI blood splatter is distracting, but other than that, it's fun. It's a satisfying moment. And in the very last moment, they see the corporate construction guy who was in charge of demolishing the old folks' home, and they all he's a zombie, and they all shoot him. And then they all get back on the boat, and Ray and Peggy kiss, and the horny old Doreen latches on to Andy, and then Ray gives this whole speech about how, we're EastEnders, we've been here forever, we'll bounce back.
Yeah.
And they're shooting people on shore from the boat, and then that's the end. And then there's a good credits sequence too, again with more fun music. Overall, this isn't a movie that I would cite as one of my favorites. It's not something that I would ever return to.
Yeah.
But I am not upset at having seen it. It had its good parts. It did.
Yeah.
It had its good parts, and it was funny and entertaining. I wasn't bored. It's just shy of an hour and a half, which is great. There were charming things about it that I really liked about it. So Francis, I apologize if I am not as enthusiastic about this as you may have hoped that I would be, but that's not to say that I don't understand why you and others like it. It is cute and it is charming. It's very British. That may have something to do with it. Like maybe if I were British, I would appreciate it a little bit more.
Maybe if you were Cockney.
Maybe, if somebody said, "Hey, have you ever watched this?" I'd say yeah, and should I watch it? Sure. I mean, like, it's not a bad movie. It's cute. It's cute. I liked it.
It's kind of light.
Yeah, it's light. I'm not gonna go, shouting out in the streets that people need to see it. But I appreciated it for what it was. It was a good time. It was a nice hour and a half distraction. And I'm glad as always, as I always say, this is a movie that I would not have watched had it not been for a request from one of our listeners. And I appreciate that. I'm glad to have seen it. I had a really, really good time talking about
more so. Even more than watching the movie, I'd say.
Right. So thank you, Francis.
Thank you.
And all of you out there, keep the requests coming. And if you requested something a long time ago, be like Francis.
Yeah.
And keep
annoying us.
Keep annoying us.
We'll get to it in a few years if you just keep gently prodding.
Gently. And Francis has been so nice every time. Just nice as can be.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, I'd still like to hear
your thoughts on Cockneys versus zombies.
So thank you, Francis, and thank you to all of you out there who listen to us and support us and message us and send us requests. It makes us feel good. We really like it, and we try to do what we can for you.
How do you know Francis even likes the movie, Craig? Maybe he's going to agree absolutely everything.
I know, maybe not.
What was it? We did one request once, and the person was like, "Yeah, I hated it too. I don't know why you think I liked it. I didn't say I liked curtains. I thought I couldn't wait to hear you guys rip it apart." I echo everything you say, man, and I like you said, it was okay. It was fine. It was cute. It wasn't particularly clever, but it had its moments. It was nice to see these older actors and spend some time with them and see the cute interactions. It did have a few moments that had me chuckling, but like you said, you just can't help but compare it to Shaun of the Dead or something like that. And it didn't reach that level of clever and unique. So, I would rewatch Shaun of the Dead in a heartbeat. And this movie, I'm probably not going to turn on again.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. If you have a request, as Craig said, just Google us, Two Guys and a Chainsaw Podcast, and then you'll find our Facebook page, our Twitter feed, and or our website, and you can leave us a comment or send us a message in any one of those places. We will respond to you. We will add your request to the list, and we will get to it sooner or later. Also, if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it with a friend. We'd love to expand our listenership. We're here. We're on YouTube as well, in case you like to fire up videos and then just listen. I don't know who chooses to listen to us on YouTube. Maybe it's just more convenient for them.
I listen to audiobooks on YouTube, so who knows?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's why we're there. Until next time, I'm Todd.
And I'm Craig.
With Two Guys and a Chainsaw.